This is in the forest near the Guardian's fortress, seemingly at its deepest depths. The silver-haired young man, Cool Boy, let out an awed breath. Contrary to his expectations, the area was overflowing with signs of life. It was even louder than the dense jungles of Emerald Coast, yet also somehow detached from the ordinary world, brimming with a pure, sacred atmosphere. Countless layers of foliage blocked out the sun, yet the surroundings remained clearly visible. Mosses and ferns scattered about released spores that glowed softly, illuminating the mystical scenery. Just ahead lies the innermost sanctuary of the forest, the dwelling of the great Dalphomon. Thank you, Elder. Cool Boy turned and expressed his gratitude to Cherrymon, the huge ancient tree Digimon behind him. Cherrymon had brought Cool Boy here in accordance with the divine request of Dalphomon to grant an audience to the Guardian's captive. The younger folk at the fortress all fear this place and refuse to come anywhere near it, so I had no choice but to lead you here myself. Was it all right to not get Mistymon's approval? Even that stubborn fellow cannot defy the great Dalphomon's words. If anything, Mistymon should be grateful for being relieved of a difficult decision. Oh, I see. Cool Boy took a moment to think back. He first heard of Dalphomon before Lacuna was discovered. This was back when he was working to turn Cross Connectia into a game that would be a sanctuary for Digimon. Dalphomon was revered like a god, so he had gone to meet it. It was then that he first encountered the Digimon, who were called the Guardians. Back then, the Guardians were not yet a highly organized group. They were merely devoted followers, led by the powerful Mega Digimon Jesmon. Initially, Cool Boy wasn't allowed to speak directly with Dalphomon, as Jesmon always stood in the way. To gain their trust, Cool Boy came to the forest repeatedly to explain the team's ideals and their sincere desire to help Digimon. Through this, they developed a mutual understanding. These conversations continued for some time, but Cool Boy had to switch focus to Lacuna when it was discovered, as it was filled with poison lethal to Digimon. The plan was straightforward. First clean up the much larger world of Lacuna, then eventually invite the Digimon living in Cross Connectia to migrate. However, while Cool Boy was carefully considering how to get Jesmon and the others to go along with his plan, various anomalies began to emerge in Lacuna, like the appearance of rogue NPCs. Cool Boy still hadn't explained the situation, but he was overwhelmed with other responsibilities and not easily able to visit Cross Connectia. Time flowed faster in Cross Connectia compared to the real world, so the Digimon ended up waiting far longer than Cool Boy realized. I guess I can't blame them for assuming they were abandoned. He couldn't stop the regrets, but neither could he afford to remain lost in them. Cross Connectia had changed drastically from how he had known it to be. Elder, may I ask you something? What is it? When exactly did Mistymon become so severe? Cool Boy had known Mistymon from back when the Magic Warrior was like Jesmon's right-hand Digimon, utilizing its profound mystic insights to support everyone around. There were even times when Mistymon gently restrained Isleomon, Jesmon's other lieutenant, a stubborn warrior. Back then, Mistymon gave the impression of being a thoughtful, cautious advisor. I can't blame you all for being angry at me. Still, Mistymon's actions have been unexpectedly extreme. Humph! Cherrymon snorted at Cool Boy's words. Its eyes within its trunk glowed softly as it looked back into the distant past. Mistymon has always been the type to think constantly. The current direction of things was probably a decision it made at great length. I don't like Mistymon's current methods either, but the Guardians would have fallen apart otherwise. With disasters breaking out everywhere and mysterious enemies appearing from outside, we might have been utterly helpless. You mean Mistymon has deliberately taken on the role of being hated? Oh, Mistymon's not nearly noble enough for that. It's simply a case of self-imposed responsibility, trying to fill Jesmon's big shoes. Cool Boy recalled Jesmon's straightforward gaze and earnest words. He could only imagine the immense pressure Mistymon must feel, stepping into the void left by that holy night. Cherrymon fixed its gaze firmly on Cool Boy, then spoke. Mistymon ought to rely more on others, that's what I think at least, but whatever I say is dismissed as an old tree's rambling. I don't believe you abandoned this world, Cool Boy. I'm sure you humans have your own circumstances. However, I do resent that your actions have forced that stubborn fellow into this difficult situation? Cherrymon, afraid of having his weaknesses forgiven, forever blaming himself. Digimon Liberator. Side story, Debug.22. Audience. The air was clear and beautiful, yet each breath Cool Boy took made him more and more uneasy. He was in the very heart of the forest, in a space blanketed by mosses and ferns. The air felt far too real, almost indistinguishable from the real world. Each breath, each inhalation of oxygen into his lungs gave him a sense that he was being pulled into the space. It was as if his body was transforming into something that could never return to its original world. This had to be the very heart of the world, called cross-connexia. Every cell in his body seemed to be screaming that. "So you have come." Suddenly a voice echoed from somewhere. It was as though the world itself had spoken. At least that's how it felt to Cool Boy. Every plant in this place, every fallen leaf decaying after fulfilling its purpose, every particle floating in the air, they all seemed to vibrate with sentience, transmitting a singular, unified will. The voice echoed not only externally, but also within himself. It was as though he too had already become part of the world, a conduit for the will of a god. The voice was feminine, with gentle tenderness that seemed to envelop all things. Its solemnness made Cool Boy stand straighter. You're Delphamon." Cool Boy endeavored to address the unseen Digimon with confidence. "It's good to finally meet you, Harold. I have been watching you for a very long time." Cool Boy's eyebrow twitched slightly. This presence seemed to understand who he was far more deeply than he had anticipated. Cherrymon's words from earlier passed through his mind again. "No secrets, huh?" As Cool Boy muttered quietly to himself, he felt the air around soften slightly. "Be at ease. I do not intend to uncover more than I must." "Well, thank you for that. In that case, I'll speak plainly. Since you already seem to know who I am, I'll skip introducing myself." Cool Boy let out a resigned sigh at how Delphomon appeared to be reading his mind. "Delphomon, you sounded disappointed when I arrived, but why? It was you who called me here." The air vibrated as Delphomon answered. "Yes, I did summon you, but what will result from this meeting will surely be tragic for both you and Cross-Connexia." So Unchained even knew I would come here. It wasn't difficult to realize that much. Cool Boy and Unchained had been subtly reading each other's moves, and they assumed that the other would always make the optimal decision. On the surface, the Guardians capturing Cool Boy and Delphomon granting him an audience might have looked circumstantial. But once Cool Boy was trapped in Cross-Connexia, it was inevitable that he would seek to meet the god of the world. As though seeing through his train of thought, the plants around him swayed mournfully. "Your assumption is correct, Harold. Unchained, the child of the void, is now with my counterpart." "Your counterpart?" "Yes, a Digimon who took the inconstant path of Digivolution to a different destination. The child of the void intends to rejoin the split paths into one." Cool Boy could tell there was a faint trace of resentment toward the counterpart in Delphomon's voice. What was the exact nature of this counterpart? No, the more pressing matter was Unchained's objective. So Unchained plans to use you to attain even greater power? "Yes, many heartless puppets followed your trail and will soon descend upon our world." Cool Boy felt the blood drain from his face, yet Delphomon's voice remained completely calm. "Be at ease, Harold. It will not unfold as you fear." "How can you say that? This is the worst possible scenario. Why would you summon me here, knowing that it places both Lacuna and even your own existence in danger?" "Because I will not allow myself to become the tool that the child of the void desires. Before that happens, I shall perish along with this world." "What?" Unable to process the out-of-the-blue declaration, Cool Boys was almost lost for words. "What are you saying?" "It is quite simple. If I am taken to Lacuna, this world will suffer catastrophe, so before that occurs, I will return this world to the earth while it remains pure and untainted." "That's absolutely ridiculous." Cool Boy raised his voice sharply, but Dalphemon responded with deliberate calm. No, I am not saying this out of despair. Then why? Because this world is nearing the end of its lifespan. Cool Boy fell silent. You have heard about it yourself, yes? Aberrations are occurring all across this world, and not because of any external influence. This world has reached its limit and now stands on the brink of collapse. Such is the fate of worlds as small as this. You considered this possibility yourself, did you not, Harold? That is why you chose Lacuna over this world. But I was the first Digimon born into this world as a being who embodies nature itself. My existence allowed the colors of wilderness to flourish strongly here. It is a world where the strong endure and the weak perish, but all meet their end in time. In a voice whose gentleness felt almost cruel, the deity continued, That is why I believe this world itself should gracefully accept its end. We have a right to perish beautifully. I intend to exercise it. No, I can't accept that. Cool Boy clenched his fists with all his strength. This world might be small, but countless Digimon live here, each one irreplaceable. So long as there's even the slightest possibility of saving them, I can't abandon them. Not a chance. That is admirable, Harold. Dalphemon said nothing more, and silence reigned. Then, the air suddenly filled with overwhelming tension. Gravity seemed to double, or even triple, forcing Cool Boy to his knees. However, I do not accept what you are saying either. Like you, I desire to save this world's Digimon. But how do you propose to resolve this situation? Do you expect me to simply cross over to Lacuna, following the Child of the Void's script? That will only invite greater calamity. And what about the Digimon here? How will you convince Misty Mon? Would you have them simply trust you and travel to Lacuna, a land still filled with poison, and on top of that under your enemy's control? Well, when Cool Boy failed to respond, Dalphemon continued, sounding like a strict, scolding mother. That will not do, Harold. If you truly meant what you said, you should have offered hope, even if it was false. You should have told me you might fall into the enemy's trap, be corrupted and defiled, and meet a tragic end. But even so, I want you to fight alongside me. Cool Boy was stunned into silence. You claim you wish to save the Digimon, but you lack the resolve to share their fate? I can't let you, or any Digimon just living their lives, be dragged into... No, there is no being in this world that is just living its life. Those words struck Cool Boy with the crushing force of a hammer. As he collapsed to the ground groaning, Dalphemon continued to speak in that same gentle voice. I cannot entrust you with my beloved children. Dalphemon, be at ease. If this world perishes, the schemes of the Child of the Void will fail. Protect your own world. These words were unmistakably a divine decree, an overwhelming will, impossible to oppose. Cool Boy tried desperately to resist, but his body refused to move. Even his throat refused his attempt to speak. But then, the crushing pressure vanished at once. Released from its grip, Cool Boy collapsed heavily, gasping for air again and again. Are you all right? Dalphemon, have you changed your mind? No, but I have decided that it is still too soon to pass final judgment. What? As Dalphemon spoke, the floating particles in front of Cool Boy gathered and formed a rectangular screen, upon which an image formed. Cool Boy stared at those gathered just outside the Guardian's fortress. Yuki and Impmon, Winner and Funbeemon, Rutaro and Tyrannomon, Suzune and Frigimon, the debuggers. Let us wait and see. It will be their choices that determine the fate of this world. Cool Boy tightly clenched his fists as though praying with all his heart.